Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Cloud ERP. This special edition podcast is brought to you in partnership with the Let's Talk Data podcast. I am your host, Jennifer Frank McGrory. We have a great conversation planned for everyone. Today, my guest is Ian James, team principal for Mercedes EQ Formula E team. Ian and I are going to have a discussion about how the Mercedes team is using SAP S/4HANA Cloud to enable the race team users to have access from all around the world as they travel the race circuit. This episode has lots of twists and turns, so let's get rolling. Welcome, Ian.
Kind introduction. It's great to be part of this today and really looking forward to this discussions.
Cool. Can you tell us a little bit about the Mercedes EQ Formula E team and a little bit about the company?
Yeah, of course. Well, Mercedes-Benz as a company has a rich heritage in motorsport. In fact, we've been messing around in motorsport for some 127, 128 years now, I think. So an incredibly long period of time. And we've always used motorsport as a test bed, if you like, for our road car program. So it's an incredibly important part of our history and something that we're looking to continue into the future. And talking about future, Formula E started back in 2014 and really is setting the benchmark from a motorsport perspective as we shift towards electrification of mobility and the concepts there. So it's only natural that Mercedes got involved in that as well. And we took the decision about three and a half years ago now to come in. And in 2019, we actually had our first season in Formula E. But not only did we need to build a team, we also built a whole new company up from a blank sheet of paper to be able to do that. So it's been an incredible journey along the way, and SAP has really played a really key and instrumental role in getting us to the point that we're at today.
To that end, can you talk a little bit about why you evaluated a new digital core outside? I mean, obviously you needed a digital core to run your essentially a new business that was stemmed from Mercedes, but talk a little bit about why you wanted to go this direction and then why S/4HANA and cloud, by the way.
Absolutely. Well, I think as I said before, we started very much with a blank sheet of paper. We had no team members, no team to speak with. So it's a great opportunity to really start from scratch and build things up to make sure that they were going to be future-proofed as we grew and we developed as a team and as an organization, as a company as well. We had the opportunity then to partner with SAP, and throughout all of our partnerships, it's key to me that there's mutual benefit on both sides. And it's no longer the case that a sponsorship or a partnership is simply a financial transaction. And through SAP, we were able to harness the power of the cloud as we started up and actually build our processes to make sure that they were fit for purpose. And in doing that, I think that we've added to the performance of the team as well. So back in 2019, when we started off, we were actually located in 5 different locations across 2 different countries. So it was key that we had something that was going to be flexible enough and adaptable enough to meet our needs. And certainly, I think with what we've achieved, that's very much been proven to be the right choice. The other thing is that we had a very, very short space of time in order to get things up and running. There's an old adage in motorsport that race one never moves, and that's absolutely true. So we had a very small window in which to get our systems, our processes up to speed and implemented. And if I think back to the project that we had together with SAP, from that blank sheet of paper through to having the systems fully implemented, I think it was something in the region of about 13 weeks, which was incredibly fast. And that really, for us, was absolutely key.
Amazing. 13 weeks. That's unbelievable. And I loved what you said about future-proofing and fit to purpose. That's really awesome. Can you talk a little bit more about what fit to purpose means in terms of what you were using it for as a foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we had to really cover all of the various different business units, and that collaboration between the units and of course IT was of paramount importance. So at the heart of our team are the engineers and mechanics, the race team that travels around the world. They obviously need to rely on the systems, the processes, the connections and the data that they're gathering as well, and have access to that at all times. So that's something that is of fundamental importance to us, because at the end of the day, it boils down to performance and performance on track. But the whole system needs to work in order to support that performance. So if I think about the administrative areas back at base, if I think of IT, if I think of the commercial operation as well, all of that needs to function in the background to be able to support that ultimate goal of going faster on track as well. And I think that's where you need a system which is designed around the specific needs of the organization, specific needs of us as a team, to be able to get the best out of it. And I think, again, that's what's been proven to have achieved. And it culminated, I'm glad to say, in those two World Championship titles that we managed to achieve at the end of last season.
So performance all around, that's awesome. Can we talk a little bit about when you started the project? How did IT and the business departments, how did they all work together so that you were assured that when you did go live in that such short time frame, that the business was going to be accepting of the solution?
Well, we have quite a delicate balancing act to achieve within Mercedes-Benz, because although we're a very small team, and when I say small, the core team is about 60 individuals, 60 experts and team members. The slightly wider team, if I take in the manufacturing aspects, gets up to about 110. So, compared with Mercedes-Benz as a global corporation, or even SAP, we're very small in that regard. And yet we're part of this huge corporation. Mercedes is the 8th largest brand in the world. And for that reason, there's a whole load of compliance processes and topics that come along with that, as one example. But at the same time, so we need to address those and make sure that we're sort of fitting into the overall ecosystem. But we need to remain very agile, and I think it's that collaboration between those business units that's so key, and having the processes and systems in place which enable that. And the other thing is, we're a relatively young team. We brought people in from different areas, both from motorsport backgrounds, from completely other business areas as well. So quite a diverse team. So we needed systems and processes that were set up in such a way that they were going to be completely intuitive. Because it's no good having something that's very clever and very good if the people, the users, need months and months of training to be able to get up to speed. We simply didn't have that luxury of time. So again, that intuitive process, the fact that the system itself was so intuitive, was a really key element in our success over the last couple of years.
I'm sure. And tell me, so you had people coming in, I'm sure probably some from Mercedes, others from other motorsport background, from industry, correct? And you're going into trying to be fit for purpose, fit for standard. How did all of this and all of these different people coming from different backgrounds with respect to different business backgrounds and other companies, how did that affect you going forward with having standard processes and following those standard processes? Was there a lot of pushback with respect to changing standard processes that came with the solution, or did you stay specific around going fit to standard with respect to your business processes, standard business processes? I can't speak today. Sorry.
No, it's all good. All good. No, I think it's again taking in those different facets of the organisation. The fact that we had to fit in with the processes and the systems that come, I suppose, as part of the legacy of being involved with a corporation the size of Mercedes-Benz, but at the same time having that agility that I spoke about before. That's of paramount importance. But I think it's testament to the systems that we put in place, to the ease of use, that actually we didn't get much pushback from the individuals, even though they'd come in from such a diverse range of backgrounds as well. So I think that the fact that you were able to get up and running very quickly was very, very important indeed. And at the end of the day, especially those of us who've come from a motorsport background, and that there are people with far more experience than I have within the team. They are by nature very impatient people. That's why they tend to work in motorsport. And I think that, again, had it not been intuitive, had it not been easy to just get on board and up and running with it, we would have had that pushback, and we would have struggled to make sure that it had been adopted as quickly as it was. at the end of the day, again, every single element of what we do, it doesn't matter whether it's in finance or on the commercial side of the business, in engineering or with the mechanics, ultimately all you're doing is making a car go faster around the track. And it sounds simple, but that's where the focus needs to be. You need absolute focus because that's what your competition have as well. So I think that anything that's not adding value to that process is very quickly discarded. And I think that that's absolutely not the case here. What we've got is something that's been implemented, something that's up and running, that is very much adding value to that and very much has a direct impact in terms of how fast we're going, and then how we do within the championships. And that's what's exciting for me. It's seeing something which, every business needs, every business, can take an advantage from, but being put into a very specific and a very real environment as well, where every thousandth of a second counts.
The devil is certainly in the details, I'm sure, in what you do, and that's great to hear. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about our environmental world around us with respect to, we're all kind of coming out of this last 24 months of the pandemic. You're a motorsport organization who is, going from Rome to Barcelona to New York City, et cetera, et cetera. How did the pandemic, help, or how did your operations continue during the pandemic?
I think we were very lucky, first and foremost, in the fact that we were just about up and running before the pandemic really struck, and certainly in the UK, and absolutely, and in Germany we had the lockdowns very quickly as well. So we were thrust into a situation whereby those 5 different locations that I was speaking about suddenly became 50, 60, 100 different locations as people were forced to work from home. And again, through the flexibility of the systems, through the connectivity, we were able to keep things going. And actually, we took a conscious decision because if you remember, wind back a couple of years, nobody really knew where this was all going to end. We took a conscious decision once the series itself paused and took a stop and we weren't able to travel anymore, we weren't able to race anymore, to actually switch our focus to, well, what could we do to try and support the current situation? So that engineering talent that we've got, that manufacturing talent that we have, and the supply chain that we built up, they actually switched focus very quickly to developing what they call a CPAP machine, which was a sort of a constant pressure, air pressure device used to effectively treat people who'd come down with COVID in those few months when it was really, really very, very acute as well. Now, if I think about how quickly we were able to switch from racing through to actually developing something that was very much for the medical industry and very quickly managed to get these devices into the hospitals through that first wave of the pandemic. Again, we couldn't have done that had we not been as flexible and agile as we were. So in a strange way, I like to think that actually the organization was able to help people out in that situation and demonstrate also its adaptability.
So cool. I did not realize you guys switched to making CPAP. I know lots of organizations here in North America, and I'm sure worldwide did, but I didn't catch it. That's pretty cool. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the organization and your change management process. What worked, and what, if you had to do this all over again, what would you tell your former self that you would do a little different if you had to do it again?
That's a great question. If I look back over and don't forget, we've only been in existence for a relatively short period of time, but if I look back over the last 3.5 years, we've never got ourselves into a situation that I would call is necessarily one of stability. So the first season that we actually competed, we competed as what they call a customer team. So somebody else was the manufacturer, and we were just simply getting up to speed operationally. We then switched to a manufacturer and competitor status, which means that we're then responsible for developing and producing the power unit and other systems that go into the car. So that then was a fairly significant change in terms of the organisation that we built up. the responsibilities that we had as well. Then we decided 12 months later that if we were going to stay competitive in the future as the competition was getting stronger and stronger, we needed to take out the inefficiencies that came through being in those 5 different locations that I spoke about earlier, both in Germany and the UK. So we've now consolidated most of the operations in our home base of Brackley in the UK. So again, that was another change because we had to move the entire operational team from Germany over to England. So each time you do that, what you're doing is you're having to change your systems to adapt, to train people in a little bit of a different way. And I'm very glad that we've been able to manage that process in such a way that it's brought the least disruption possible into the entire machine. And again, that's been crucially important because I think some of our competitors haven't had that instability, and it's important that we do a great job and make sure that we're continuing to push forward on track as well. So having said all of that, I think that if I look back on that time, would I've changed anything? I think we would have probably taken the decision to consolidate activities and get to where we're at sooner, so that we could have hit the ground running. Now, some of that was hampered by the pandemic, so I think that's more of a, in hindsight, and had things been different scenario. Had we not had the pandemic, then it would have been possible to do that. But I think that from a systems perspective, I wouldn't necessarily have done anything particularly different, simply for the fact that those systems, those processes that we've put in place have actually supported all of that change and all of that disruption as well. So it's been incredibly important, I suppose, in that way, to have some stability in the background as we've changed the operational structure of the organisation. And I don't think we'll stop there. We'll continue in the future to compete. We'll continue in the future to push forward and make sure that we're challenging for those championship wins. So it's going to still be incredibly important to make sure that we adapt and change. And therefore, I think that it's important to keep the stability within the systems, but still have the opportunity to make improvements as new products, as new capabilities come online through that, and make sure that we're leveraging them to add performance.
Excellent. Tell me about intelligent technologies. Did you implement any intelligent technologies, and are you using any, and or do you have plans to implement any further intelligent technologies that come as part of your S/4HANA Cloud solution?
There's all sorts of things that we look at on the using S/4HANA, and I'm certainly by no means the expert within the team on those. But if I think about some of the things that we've done since having SAP on board as a partner, and when I say that, I mean SAP was one of the founding partners, so you've very much been with us from the very start. Not only did we implement S/4HANA in the cloud, but we've worked with Qualtrics as well to ensure that our guest experience is as good as it can be, that we've integrated the fans into our processes as well. That's been very important for us. And the other thing that you mentioned earlier, which is really a priority number one topic, is sustainability. Ultimately, we don't just want to be the pinnacle of electric motorsport. We also want to be the pinnacle of global sport when it comes to sustainability and to our footprint there. So it's important that the systems that we have in place also help us to measure and help us to be held accountable. So with SAP S/4HANA in the background, enabling us to collate that data, enabling us to share that data, we've also, together with SAP, been developing a sustainability dashboard. And that's measuring our travel footprint. It's measuring now our supply chain footprint. And with that information, we can now start to really develop and ensure that we are taking the right steps in the future to stay ahead of the curve. And as I say, ultimately be benchmark in terms of sustainability as a sport within Formula E, and then as a team with the Mercedes EQ Formula E team as well. So that's incredibly important. And the other thing that we're starting to look at the moment, and this is something that really plays a huge role in terms of performance on track, is artificial intelligence. So AI is playing an ever increasing role in unlocking the way that we can actually use data. So I think having a system in the background such as SAP S/4HANA, having the flexibility to be able to not only collate that data, but then use it as you want to, dovetailing in with some of those AI systems is going to be something that we're going to leverage more and more in the future. And hopefully in doing so, keep ourselves one step ahead of the competition.
So tell me, Ian, what's next for the Mercedes EQ Formula E team? You can talk both from a race perspective as well as from a systems perspective.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things on that. I mean, the sustainability stuff we've just discussed, I think that's very much in focus now in the present, but also in the future. I think that we're going to be driving that forward. The other things from a systems perspective, if I think about the case studies that we've got ongoing at the moment and some of our focus points, very much is centered on our purchasing activities. We're coming into what I would term as a necessary evil going forward from next season, where we actually introduce a cost cap, because ultimately the series itself needs to be financially sustainable. So, and that cost cap that we've brought in is going to be tough to achieve, I think, for all teams, but especially those who are fighting at the top for the championships. So the efficiency in the way in which we use our resources, both our human resources, our human capital and expertise, as well as the financial capital and expertise, is going to be of crucial importance. And that's where I see the collaboration with the team at SAP really coming again into its own and making sure that we can leverage that expertise and do things as efficiently as possible. Because at the end of the day, if you achieve that, it means again that you're going to be spending your money. It means you're going to be directing your human resource into the areas that are going to bring you the most performance. And if we keep that simplicity of that goal in focus, then I think it'll definitely stand us in good stead. And then in terms of future for the team, it's very exciting at the moment to be involved within Formula E at this time, because we're coming to the end of what we call Generation 2, which is the current car that we're racing. At the end of this season, that finishes, and we move next season into Generation 3. And that sees us having, first and foremost, a power uplift from 250 kilowatts to 350 kilowatts. So for somebody that's as car mad as I am, that in itself is very exciting. But there are also some other great moves that are coming in together with that. So if I take a step back, actually, energy management is of crucial importance in Formula E. So you're only given a certain amount of energy for the race itself, and you need to use that in the most efficient manner as well. What we'll have with Gen 3 is not only the opportunity to regen that energy on the rear axle, we're going to have it on the front axle as well. So you're going to have up to 600 kilowatts of regen capacity. And this is going to be a game changer in terms of the way that I think motorsport is seen. It's going to really show the power of electric mobility on the racetrack. And hopefully through the advances that we're making as well, that will then translate into the cars that you and I drive on the road. And that for me is incredibly exciting. If I go back to what I said at the beginning, Mercedes-Benz, through that 128-year history, they've very much been focused on using motorsport as a test bed. And I think if we can do that, which I've just described in Formula E, then we'll have a great opportunity to really drive that forward for the future. Wow.
Ian, this has been awesome. You know, Ian, you've mentioned a few times SAP, the support of SAP and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit about, you've been live for a couple of years now. How is your continued partnership with SAP, and how do you engage with them today now that you are live and kind of in a continuous improvement loop?
Yeah, if I think right back to the beginning, and that sort of 13-week period that we had in going from that blank sheet of paper through to implementation, I mean, that was incredibly intense. And again, I'll go back to the fact that I'm certainly no expert on this. So there were others within the organisation that were very much sort of woven into the SAP team to ensure that we could get up and running as quickly as we did. But we haven't stopped there. We've continued to develop systems. We've continued to work together with SAP. So we're very fortunate to have that relationship, that partnership that enables us to do that. But also some people who have a genuine interest in what it is that we're doing and are helping us to push things forward. So when I talk about, the sustainability dashboard, when I talk about the fact that we've got the cost cap coming in and we need to be more efficient in our processes, we're very and consciously engaging with SAP and the teams on that, so that we can leverage that expertise. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier about that mutual benefit. For me, a partnership is exactly that. It's got to work in both directions, and that's very much true of the authentic relationship that we have with SAP.
Awesome. Well, Ian, I got to tell you, I could ask you more and more questions. We can go on, but I know that it is getting to be a little late over where you are in Rome, and I am sure you are got to wrap up the rest of your day. I think it's awesome what you have put forward with your team. You have an incredible story, and you are clearly moving in that you have moved to digitally transform your organization to become a true intelligent enterprise. I really appreciate the vision, the mission, and I love the sustainability efforts that are unique to your organization, and that you are not only looking at it for your specific organization and industry, but also then, you mentioned the air industry and other industries that you tap out to in order to be able to move your operation from location to location, and such amazing things. So thank you so much for your time and your efforts, and coming off of the racetrack to talk with all of us today.
Fantastic. Jennifer, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Let's Talk Cloud ERP. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to continue in a smaller, more interactive session, I would like to invite you to sign up for a value exploration workshop. This 2.5-hour interactive call to action session, curated for both IT and business leaders, will enable you to interact directly with SAP S/4HANA through our SAP S/4HANA ERP simulation game. The simulation game will demonstrate how you can have greater control of your business processes by having members of your team from across business functions such as finance, sales, marketing, and procurement work together to showcase the true power of SAP S/4HANA. The really cool thing about this game is you get the chance to compete and show your team's full profitability potential against other teams. Check out the show notes to learn more about the Value Exploration Workshop and upcoming dates. Finally, I would like to thank the Let's Talk Data podcast for their partnership. We couldn't do what we do without them. Until next time, I am Jennifer Frank McGrory. Have a great rest of your day.